Yo, testing, testing. 1, 2. What's up? Woo, spiderwebs. What's up, everyone? Welcome, welcome. Man, I scrambled, and so my lighting is completely blown out. I have literally no way of doing anything about that. So I'm sorry. Like, the camera is gonna be doing a lot. Like, it's gonna be doing kind of crazy stuff here, but. Whew, I was scrambling to get this put together, by the way, because I have been doing some kind of crazy cool stuff over here that you guys on the stream are not going to see. But if you're in the Discord server, you already know what I'm talking about. This finally came in today. We're going to have some fun stuff, fun content. Okay. NXL Lone Star. Lone Star. Okay, I'm excited about this. First things first at the top of this, if you guys are going to be at the Lone Star event, please be sure to say hi. I always love when people say hi. It's a good time. Hopefully those of you who have met me in real life know that I am just as mean in person as I am online, because I will call you names. But no, in all seriousness, it really does make all this really fun and worth it. So thank you so much. Teased nifty green screen setup. Yes, I did. So, couple things aside from that. I don't like vague posting. Just know, the guys, that like that's not me. Like, I'm not like, ooh, there's exciting stuff coming ahead in the channel. But there are actually like really cool potential exciting things coming to the channel. At NXL Lone Star. So I'm not going to say anything about it yet, because I don't want it to, I don't want to wish it and then it not happen. But those of you who are mods in my Discord server already know what I'm talking about. So NXL Lone Star will probably be a big tournament for this channel, and I'm really excited for what's going to transform as a result of that. But enough is enough. Let's get into the actual layout itself. I will be sure to try and check chat periodically to see how you guys are holding up, but let's just get into it. As always, we're going, by the way, I skimmed a picture of this layout. I have no idea what this is going to look like. So, wow, no snake corner, huh? That is kind of crazy. I'm not sure I would draw the snake line like this. It's actually, no, actually, I'm going to change that. Some of you might not think this matters very much. I actually think it matters a great deal, by the way, to do this exercise. I think it actually helps visualize how the layout is probably going to break down. So this is how I would draw these zones. We're just going to do Dragon and Charger for the sake of this. You guys know I do like the Iowa, Arizona, all that stuff. If you have no idea what I'm talking about when I talk about zones, I have videos on that. Go find them. Super surprising there's no snake corner. That's actually crazy. But otherwise, it looks like a pretty sweet layout. So let's take a look at it heads up really quick. As always, let's walk the back line. Huge cross-field gap off the break for the number 2s going into the snake. This is a massive, massive gap right here. Tons of blind potential in this little box here from the middle, especially from the heads up guy in front of you. So I imagine this is going to be a cross shot all day. We'll have to see what the number 2 on the Dorito side can do to survive that, because geez, that's pretty rough. Really, really big gap for the home guy shooting towards the number 2 on the snake side, but breaking out. Again, another really big blind in this wedge. But interestingly enough, depending on where the number 2 on the Dorito floated, he might actually be able to shoot you. I mean, he'd have to be in no man's land to do that, but that is interesting. And then again, moving up towards this wedge, huge gaps heads up, no surprise there. There's even a cross gap shot that you could shoot, but I don't know why you would do that over just doing this. Is there something? No. You actually have 2 gaps here, so you not only have the gap for the number 2 going here, but you might actually even be able to shoot the number 1. That would be a really hard shot, I would imagine, because the time that your paint travels, like, you probably have to be putting your shots right here on the right side of that brick to actually hit that. But if we go out to the can now, decent heads up, super straightforward. And then I'm trying to go out of the snake corner. There is no snake corner, which is insane. Like, look at this massive, like, there ought to be a bunker here, man. But that'll make the snake really, really interesting. So that essentially means that the heads up snake guys, like the number ones on the snake side, really have to like fight to win in order to control the snake. Because if they get into the snake, you get stuck. They're going all the way. We'll look at some inside shots. I imagine these wedges. Yeah, these wedges are really going to be the saving grace to stop people from just getting into the 50 right away. But that looks to be like the only thing stopping the snake. And then what that naturally is going to cause, especially just looking at this now, is a lot of inside run-throughs, because this guy is going to be your main defense towards the snake push. So interesting stuff. Going into the snake itself, you obviously have a wire battle, actual true tape, but you have to be in the snake to hold that, which is crazy. Really, really big gap cross field. Holy cow. That is a huge gap. What is that even? That's the Dorito 1 to, we'll call it the Dorito 2 or baby, and even a corner route. The problem is that so what you could probably do, again, these is just like cursory thoughts. I'm just kind of rattling what's coming off of my head. What it looks to be is that if both teams make it to this mini W and the number 2 can effectively stop them from making this move right away, it actually looks like this inside route is totally doable. It might mean that these people cross up to begin with, depending on where the Dorito player is stopping. If he's stopping at the Dorito 1, this crossfield shot from the snake is really, really rough. But as you guys know on this channel, I'm not a big fan of having your number 1s get far up the field only to look cross and hold a gap. But a lot of the layouts that we've been playing on, especially this year, actually lend themselves to doing stuff like that. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Is that wedge correct in the highway? On the NXL post, it's facing Doritos. Oh, wait, hold on. We're having some conflicting messages. Let's take a look here really quick on what is actually going on with the Dorito side. Let's see. Oh, yeah. What? That's weird. These wedges right here, the slant is facing the Dorito side. So, I mean, I would be surprised, to be honest. If I had to guess, I would say that these are more incorrect than the guns up layout is. That's just my assumption. Mostly because the issue, I think it makes it less interesting if the harsh edge of the wedge is essentially on the outside towards the snake, because that makes all of these angles exactly the same. Whereas if you have this slanted angle facing the snake, not only is it less strong to hold against the snake player, but it makes it a little more interesting when you try to shoot somebody heads up with like a blind shot. So I would assume that this is correct and the picture is not, but also because they could update this layout, right, accordingly. So interesting. That gap was the first thing I saw. It's crazy open. Yeah, that gap is massive. Okay, let's look at the Dorito side then. So you number 2s and number 1s on the Dorito side, good luck, dude. This is huge. Look at how big this gap is. This is insane. It looks like, I mean, even the Snake 1 has a crazy shot cross field. So it looks like this is going to be the hardest thing to survive. And I would not be surprised if, we didn't look at the back center shooting Dorito or shooting Snake. This is a pretty decent gap. Your best chance is to shoot a number 2, probably. I mean, you always could shoot a number 1, right? It depends on how slow they are. It depends on how accurate you are and how quick you get your gun up. But that's a really hard shot to shoot a front snake runner. You're more than likely going to shoot a number 2 who would be either running and gunning out to this can or whatever. But yeah, wow. Actually, it kind of looks like the only way that the number 2, because like what you don't want is you don't want your snake guy running and your can guy running. And I think it's probably too wide of a gap to run and gun into this. So you're probably going to stop here a lot and let your snake guy kind of go to town in one of these 2 spots. And then he's either going to punch here and go here, or he's going to come out to this can and a delay sort of move. So, but so far, the home has nothing on the snake side except for that gap. So I would imagine that was going to cause the home guy to shoot the Dorito side 24/7. This is really, really, really rough. We also might see double ups on the home for that reason, because you're going to have to risk a body on the Dorito side anyway. There's no way around that. So it's possible that we will either see a double stack with a risk body going pretty much anywhere. It doesn't matter. Pick a bunker. Or in a crazier scenario, you could see an entire Dorito side shifting essentially all of the pressure over towards the snake, right? So what you'd end up having is something like this, where your number 1 in the snake goes to one of those 2 bunkers, your number 2 goes to the can, your 3 goes here, he filters up the middle, and then this guy eventually breaks out and relieves that pressure. The issue is, if you're not careful, I'm not saying that that's a good idea. I'm just saying it is an idea that you could work with because this gap is just so hard to survive in. So I usually like to have at least some kind of backup in my head about what we could do if we're just not living going out on the Dorito side. But the fact of the matter is, it's probably going to be the case that you're probably not going to survive on the Dorito side more than 50% of the time. Like, this is huge. So, okay. Running out, if you can make it here, you have a crossfield gap shot. The issue is the snake side shooting towards you, I think, is a bit stronger because you have to do so much movement to get to this spot before you could even really pull up your gun and start shooting. And that snake guy's crossfield shot is already coming at you. So I wouldn't suspect that that's really a gap you could play. What you could do is you could come out here and use essentially this lane to run up to the 50 brick. On the Dorito side, you could run up blinding up essentially the whole way. I would imagine, well, maybe not the whole way, because right here that snake guy is going to shoot you if he's still playing that gap. If he's coming up to this tower, he's going to kill you here. But at the very least, you could stop here for a second and then wrap, put him in, and then go to the 50 brick. You could even come on the inside and surprise him. But coming out to the can then, interesting heads up battle. You can't actually ignore this one. Again, going off of what's on here on Guns Up, you actually can't probably get low enough to dodge that paint. You would have to actually shoot that guy. But it is obviously a teeny gap. Like, whatever paint's going to drop in on somebody, you could probably just shoot a couple balls, put them in, and then go. So the can to the Dorito move is pretty safe, but look at this. That tower crossfield shot is really, really strong. Man, the snake crossfield shots towards the Doritos are ridiculous. That is insane. You do have a big gap that Dorito tower can hold, as we can see. Like, look at that huge lane that he's got control of from that position. So he's got essentially this entire angle held down, which is really nice. So what it's looking like so far is kind of like you could call it a 1-3-1 essentially, where you have your number ones, your wide guys trying to get wherever they can alive on their side of the field, and then you have kind of a clustered middle where you're playing a lot of bunkers in this little zone right here. Obviously, I would include the can in this, but I would probably call that a 1-3-1. That's kind of what this layout's looking like, simply because the crossfield shots, we haven't looked at the Dorito side towers crossfield shots if they're even there, but at least the shots towards the Dorito side are insane right now for those 2 spots. So certainly the number 3 could play that job depending on where you stop them. So if, for example, teams are just totally pulling up short on the Dorito side, they're essentially doubling up the home with their number 1 and number 2 on the Dorito side at the back center. You might end up sending, like I said, your number 3 here to then hold off whatever Dorito push they're trying to make, because that is a really good gap. And as long as you can hold that, then you can start leapfrogging your way out of that positioning. So interesting so far. So then getting out to the corner, same sort of scenario as was the case with the towers. You have, or the cans, excuse me. You have this drop shot. Definitely there. You can't ignore that one unless you go on the inside. You actually even have to worry about the inside drop shot. That's definitely there. And obviously, if you're looking inside, you run the risk of getting shot at by the Dorito 1 right here or the tower right here. You don't really have to worry about the snake. That 50 snake would mess you up. That looks to be a free kill for them. So we'll have to make note of that this corner spot is really, really hard to survive if they're in the 50 snake, and I would actually suspect that you don't live here unless you play on the outside of this bunker, but we'll look at the snake here in a minute. Let's go into the Dorito 1. Super standard heads up battle. The challenge is that the wrap, so like if our assumption is correct that number 2s are going to be playing here a lot and the number 1s are going to be playing here, to win this battle and then wrap and shoot this guy. That's a pretty wide wrap. Yeah, that's kind of tough. And it looks like what you don't want is to have your number 1 here and your number 2 here. Unless this guy's shooting cross, and then there's some kind of crossfield shot coming in from the snake side, which... I mean, there's the can, but nobody's going to be doing that. It doesn't look like there's a really good crossfield shot anywhere to stop this move. So, at least... Oh, excuse me. Duh. It's the snake one. That snake cross is insane. But again, I don't love holding that crossfield shot because you essentially... you entirely halt your snake side pressure by simply shooting that crossfield gap. So... I think it's a purposeful gap you can hold, but I don't think you do it forever because then you're just not pushing the snake. If you have a body alive in the snake one, you should push that. Okay, let's go into this Dorito 2 here and take a look heads up. Interesting. You can kind of get low. You can get low and dodge everything heads up. Obviously, if you're matched, right? If the guy's in the Dorito 1, can't ignore him. You can completely ignore somebody if they're in the can. Obviously, the problem being if they bump from the can to the Dorito, which you can't see, they would surprise you. Obviously, super straight heads-up battle from that tower. And you actually also have a safety net that the home could hold if they lost a body and you were pushing down the Doritos really hard. At least this move, that home guy could just start dumping paint into this gap. Again, lots of crossfield shots at this point. This is a layout where, so normally, if you guys have watched me do these layouts before, a lot of what goes on in the midfield that is favoring one side, like this snake side tower, for example, the assumption that you can make in general terms is that the number 2s are almost always going to play heads up. Okay, because they're trying to protect their front player from getting run down, getting 2v1'd and losing ground on that side, etc., etc. Obviously, the way that is counteracted is that you have 2 people holding a cross, right? You have 2 number 2s shooting opposite side of the field to essentially do the same job but cross field. So normally when we look at moves that stop front players, we're assessing it from the heads up guy that he's fighting, the number 2 who's supporting that guy, and then whatever the middle might be doing, right? We always have to assume that there's somebody in the middle if it makes sense for them to be there. And so the challenge is that on this layout in particular, you have to really assess whether or not the number 2 is shooting at you. And the other issue is you have to assume that the team knows what they're doing. And if they don't, it actually might still cause you to die. So I don't care to go down this rabbit hole forever, but just to quickly explain this, if you were playing an intelligent team who knew how to distribute their guns and to make sure that they held all the jobs that they needed to hold, then what you would find in this example that I'm making up is that in a crossfield hold situation, if I was playing this spot and I was shooting heads up and I was shooting at my mirror and I wrapped and I didn't see this guy shooting at me, but I could see his paint. I could see his paint going this direction from his bunker, right? Whether there's like mist coming out of that side or just that I can see the paint going that way. If I knew it was 5-on-5, I would make the assumption that this guy is holding this gap or somebody crossfield is holding a gap because it wouldn't make sense for them to do this, right? Like, if that's the case, this is just a big mistake. And obviously, I would just punish them and then get to the 50 and win the game. So you can, if you're playing against a good team, or depending on which division you're playing, you can make that assumption of like, hey, this team probably knows what they're doing. If I'm not seeing the number 2 shooting at me heads up, it means that there's someone holding a crossfield shot. Again, if the team is smart and knows what they're doing. Otherwise, it's the wild, wild west, baby. That's show business. You got to figure it out. You got to maybe head check on the inside and see if you see paint coming this direction, or if you see, I don't know, you could even put some paint right there and you might get lucky shooting a hopper or something like that. But this is a big gap to take because of that tower. That's really all I was trying to say. Crossfield shots from the snake look pretty bad for you and good for them. So if that guy is still at the snake 1 and he decides to look on the inside, I mean, if you post up on that guy and then he switches, he's dead. But if you made it through the gap somehow and then things got quiet and you checked inside, he's got a few spots that he could surprise you in. But that's probably a more fair 50-50 battle between that Dorito 2 and the snake. So let's look at the baby here really quick. Even worse survivability towards that snake 1. This is a hard bunker to survive if you're getting shot from the snake, because you now have to play essentially heads up behind your gun. Fortunately, you can get low enough to blind out essentially everything, with the exception of this like 40-ish juice box. But if you then get up to the 50-ish Dorito, we'll call this the Dorito 3, and we'll call that baby. So for those of you at home who need help with callouts, this would be the Dorito 1, the Dorito 2, the Dorito 3, and this would be baby. And then our team, the teams that I coach, call this Delta, but not everybody's going to call it that. I'd probably call this Omaha, and then I would probably call this Dallas, and then our side would be Denver. Dallas, Denver's a little bit of a tongue twister, but that's just if you guys need help with calls, that's what I would call those. Okay, then crossfield gap holding. So if you're stuck for whatever reason, I don't know this scenario, but if you were stuck, this is a really great hold because you can react off of this. So you don't actually have to be shooting paint this direction to kill somebody. You can actually just be pointing your gun here, and if you see somebody trying to make a break for the snake, you could put paint and still kill them. So really great spot to bait out snake moves. Usually the advantage to those types of situations is if you push super hard. So let's say, for example, you push really deep on one side, you're going to start noticing that a lot of guns are shifting your way. And so you can't really do anything heads up, but if you still want to be productive, you just hold a crossfield gap so that if anything happens, where even if you lose a body on one side of the field and they try to flip the field on you, you actually are in a really good spot to equalize because you can pick up kills as they try to do that. So you just don't want to stay on the inside forever, right? If we get low, so we do have to worry about that snake side tower. If there is someone there, we will look at the viability of that in a minute. Getting up to this juice box looks relatively safe. Obviously, the baby Dorito is a concern, but I don't even know if the corner would kill you if he wraps wide from his bunker. But this is actually a pretty safe move here. No free kills yet. The god is sort of a free, not really free. You could kill the god. The way that I approach layouts is I look at the value of any bunker based on how safe it is to be in and what are the kills that it is afforded or given if you take that move. And so right now, and also the pressure that it applies to your opponents, right? Like there's a lot of value in just like being alive in a spot because it as soon as they stop looking at you, you can just end the game. No free kills, it looks like, from this position. Nothing heads up, nothing cross. If you decide to surprise somebody over the top, you could get a kill in the back center. I wouldn't challenge a guy in the tower over the top if it were me, unless I had to. But yeah, that home shot would be somewhat surprising. And then pretty small gap for the home. I don't actually know if they could really stop you here. They could just shoot the corner of this bunker and maybe have some paint, splattering. But otherwise, you're pretty good, and you can actually sit in this little gap right here. Nobody can see you. You can sit in this gap. You can get that god kill, and you can get a can kill very likely. So looks like your first kill that's like free, pretty much anywhere on the Dorito side. If I were to look on the inside, is in that Omaha, we'll call it. So in this 50 Dorito, looks like that's pretty free. So again, obviously the god could be looking at us. That would suck. We'd have to make sure that we knew that they were there and if they were looking at us or not. But if they're not, that's free. The wedge is not free. They could just play essentially on the snake side of that bunker and they could survive. No problem. No real obvious snake shots coming in. Sorry, if there's anything, hey mods, if there's anything that I'm missing that's really important for me to answer, ping me on Discord, okay? Maybe if you get into, okay, it looks like if you actually lean into your bunker, you obviously can't do this in guns up. You do have a 50-50 battle to be worried about. So when you get to this Omaha, it might be worth it to don't move the bunker too much, but push into it to see if you can see that snake. Oh, it's not even snake 50. That's just the wedge. That's what we'll call it, snake 3 maybe. So for you snake guys, this would be, we'd call this god snake 1, 2, 3 probably, and then we call this viper. There's no cobra. Cobra would be the snake corner bunker, but so just be aware of that. That's a free kill for you if you anticipate it. Otherwise, if you don't, that guy can just turn and kill you. Corner shot. You can't really ignore this guy if he's there, because sometimes what happens is the Doritos block out the corner guy such that you can get really low and wrap. You can't do that against this guy. And so you have to either kill him or he can't be there. And then obviously you have a straight up battle with the can guy. The nice thing about using a mini W to beat someone up, because like the snake, or excuse me, not the snake, these types of like juice boxes and like mini W's or wings, I guess, can be good if you use what's available. But if you just try to like low wrap on the outside, that can guy is going to get a lot of kills depending on the division that you're in, because it's really easy to just anticipate somebody's going to just come out from this angle. So if you are in the 50 here and you want to surprise somebody, you should always come up from this spot right here. Now, you can only take one shot to do that, because and if you keep coming there, like maybe the home guy is going to kill you or somebody's going to wise up to it. But this first shot, to get that guy to flinch and freak out, then you can then transition from here and just retake that control, and then you can come down here and establish this. That's a much safer thing to do than it is to just poke from here or even poke up over the top. This is not enough of an angle change for that guy to not have paint here. Against good teams, people will always shoot paint here, and they will shoot paint here as well. They'll just shoot those two spots back and forth. So getting into their 40-ish juice box, no free kills, same sort of stuff we had at the 50. You can't even really see the 50 snake either because the brick is blocking it. And then from here, it's essentially like if you get to this side of their Doritos, the game should be over. But if I were you guys, so what I always recommend anytime you have kind of like a maze of bunkers, especially in the Dorito side, I would always set up a gauntlet drill. Okay, so a gauntlet drill is essentially like a route that you create that's, you know, you can use it. You should create it based off of your actual experience of playing the layout. But depending on your access, what your access to a field looks like, or what your access to like good quality scrimmages looks like, you could just set up a route where you would anticipate to make moves up the field, and then you should set up bunkers, or excuse me, set up targets that you would shoot on your way. So this is enough of a maze of a Dorito that you could have like 6 or 7 targets at each of these bunkers, right? On your way up the field that you would just turn and shoot. So you could put, the reason I mention that is because you want to know where the shots are when you get to their side, even though generally speaking, those are free, right? You're just shooting next packs and backs. But sometimes it's really important to immediately get to that spot and know exactly where that shot is to have paint going there so that it's even safer for you to make that move. What you don't want is to have a bunch of practice in these bunkers in a tournament or in a weekend of practice and then not even know what it looks like to get to their side of the field, right? Because their side of the field is where you're going to get the majority of your kills. All right. Super quick break. Man, I've been talking a lot. What's up? Copy that. Let's see. The snake is going to feast. Impulse says, what's up, buddy? Are you going to Texas? Let's see. I never even get the confirmation email from Guns Up. Dude, yeah, like I don't either. I even tried on my phone and it didn't work. Always throw in an internal server error, which is 500 type, and this is oh yeah, that's internal server errors. That's surprising. All right, big things coming. SVP probably. This is going to be a great tourney weekend for paintball everywhere. I agree, man. All right, I think we're caught up. Testes. 1, 2, 3. Okay, guys. All right. If you're liking the video so far, liking the content, if you're watching this live, please hit the like button on the stream. It does help it a lot, and it also propels it when it actually goes live on YouTube, when it's posted, I should say. So please do that. It helps me out a lot. Let's go then into the snake. So again, heads up battle. The people that are going to stop us is this wedge, pretty much for days. This guy is like a super key bunker in stopping the wedge. We'll look at the middle-ish Dorito side after, and then we'll look at the actual middle here. So again, we looked at that crossfield snake side gap. It doesn't look like anybody can stop you if you just decide to go into the snake, which I feel like oftentimes means that you can pause to get into the snake because you don't have anything stopping you from making that next move. So if you do get to this spot and you want to be kind of you want to act as like a utility to your team, because let's be honest, guys, snake ones are not utilities. Like, let's be real. But if you want to actually serve more of like a support role as a front snake player, you can get to this spot, shoot this gap for a while, maybe, 20 seconds, and then decide to move into the snake because you're not in as much of a rush to get up the field because that first move is kind of free. So What I will say, at least, is this gap right here is going to be very, very hard to get past. I don't think you can actually go underneath that guy. I think he can get tall enough to shoot you in the pack. And so as long as your number 2 is alive and he is doing his job, this guy's kind of going to be stopping you here, and your teammate's going to be stopping him here. So it probably means that you're more useful chilling for a second to shoot this gap. That's at least my opinion. So if you survive off the break, especially getting into that front snake, I would suggest holding that for a second. Now, if you tiger, for whatever reason, this guy, if you kill this dude off the break, you best believe you need to get up the snake right away. Drop this gap. It's not worth it. Get into the snake. Try to get to the snake 50 as quickly as possible. But it looks like that wedge guy is going to have to actually die. Like you could certainly put him in and then get here and crawl and be underneath him. But that's going to be a really tough battle for you. So this also does mean number 2s on the snake side, while you practice this layout, die behind your gun stopping this guy. Okay. At least in the first part of practice, in my opinion, I would suggest that you do not let up on this gunfight, because it is supposed to be, it is supposed to be stronger for you than it is for the snake player, and you need to learn how to hold control of that and essentially never let it go. So even if it means that you have to trade out with the player, I would, in my opinion, that first day of practice, never let go of that gunfight. On the second day of practice, you can let go and see what happens, because you do also want to have scenarios in which, like in your first prelim match and it's 0-0, do you really need to die like trying to stop this guy from getting up the snake? Probably not. So you will need to get some experience knowing what it looks like for them to be in the snake 3 or the snake 50. But otherwise, don't let that go. Man, these gaps are not good for the snake. This you do have a shot here. Maybe it might be wider at the tournament. It might not exist at the tournament, but there is at least something here that you can pressure the Dorito corner with. Obviously, if they for whatever reason decided to move up to that standing wedge on their side of the field, you have some pressure there. I would imagine if they're in that spot, they're probably looking at you, so not great. Again, if they're heads up, like, you can't do a lot of what I'm going to say here, but if they're not heads up and they haven't matched you into the snake, and the widest spot that they're in is the god, which, by the way, if the widest spot that they are in is this little Aztec in front of you, is the god, you should absolutely play on the outside of the field, like only ever. So this is a really strong surprise shot for you. It's a bit of a 50-50, I will say. This guy could easily kill you. But just know that this is the shot to practice. If you are a snake player and you want to make sure you've got a snapshot dialed in my opinion, this is that shot. You should definitely practice this. So you can either have it be that you come up over the top and shoot at the Aztec, this shot right here, or you can practice. You should do both, or you can practice this. Sorry, I can't really do it very well. Or you can come here, snap out, and just like you normally would. Getting into the snake 50 then. Okay, I was going to say, that's the same gap as the snake 1. It's the gap before that one. No free kills except for maybe the tower if someone's here on the Dorito side. And the corner. That's right. I think the Dorito corner at this point is a free kill. I don't think there's any way they can live there unless they literally are just rapping on the tape. So, and you can obviously stop anybody trying to fill out to the Dorito side. So the challenge is going to be, is that if teams are dying too much getting out to the Dorito side, which then causes them to pull short, like we talked about here, then the first team to get into the snake and live, the snake 50 and live, indefinitely stops any sort of movement from the home over to the Dorito side. There's just no way that this guy will not shoot somebody trying to fill out. And so I feel like what that is going to cause is a lot of emphasis in this box here. A lot of how a point breaks down is going to be in this zone, because depending on what happens here, then frees this side of the field to launch. Now, it is, like I said, I do think that you can survive with a runner. I think your Dorito 1 player absolutely can take different routes to live, and to get out of doubling up the home. I don't think that's like the default you should go with. But the challenge is that your number 2 on the Dorito side does not have very many options. There are a few different plays you could make. So for example, you could probably, like, your number 2 goes here and then comes here. And I say that only because what you really are trying to dodge is the first shots from the home and any crossfield shots that comes from the number 2 on the snake side. So whatever you can do to avoid at least one of those guns, you don't want 2 guns to worry about off the break, is what I'm trying to say. And so if you can do whatever you can to delay getting into your primary in a safe, survivable route, then you will dodge that number 2's snake side gun coming at you, right? You'll just have the home guy's gun to dodge, which is what, number 1s know you have to dodge the number 3's gun, right? So interesting. Let's go back to the 50 snake really quick, and then we'll go up the middle. So nothing here except for big gaps, and the corner, I would say, is free. You're not going to kill the Dorito guy for free. He could just play super tight and just ignore you. You do have some good angles to surprise people with. So this inside route, I would call this the third angle. For those of you who know, you know. This third angle is really strong on the can. It will surprise people quite a bit, and you'll actually blind out almost entirely what's going on the snake side with this angle. And then if you decide to go low and wrap, you might be able to avoid the God guy. Probably not, because he's going to be tall enough in his bunker that I think he's going to kill you right here. But you would maybe be able to avoid the can. You might be able to avoid the can. Again, this is a small enough gap. Depends on the layout and how it was set up at your field and at the tournament. Wrapping on the home is really strong here. If you have if they have no snake presence, the home guy is going to have a really hard time surviving. It's not a free kill, but definitely something that's you're gonna feel a lot of pressure in that situation. And then getting up to their side of the snake, the can is now a free kill. The baby Dorito is a free kill. I would argue that Dorito 2 is a free kill. Especially because people aren't going to be like in their bunker at that point. This guy is I would argue this guy is a free kill as well. The 50 Dorito is a free kill. So their snake side is like game over. And obviously the issue is the launch from the 50 to their snake is very small. So again, making the point that these 2 players right here are super, super, super important. The nice thing is you can create breakouts where these 2 people, it makes sense for them to be in these spots, and you would just have this guy shoot Dorito way and this guy shoot snake way. So that if, for example, this guy dies, this dude can turn his gun and at least stop the bleeding, preventing them from getting into to your snake 3. So, because otherwise, a lot of times, there's layouts where it doesn't really make sense for you guys to be in essentially the same zone because it's just the angle's really bad. But because this tower guy can do a lot of work on the Dorito side, you don't have to play back behind him and only wait till he dies to then fill in to them to pick up that job, because that's usually too late. So, gonna dip, grab, whatever. See you, buddy. Thanks for tuning in. So what's a good D-side route? We'll take a look at that here in just a second. Thoughts on the center area, like potential for run-throughs for a 2-for-1 trade. I'll take a look at that here in just a second. Tell me you are a web developer without telling me you are a web developer. Oh, I have no, yeah. Such good stuff. Got a dip. Oh, okay. Echo Elements, welcome, buddy. Eric Calendar typing in his own name. Dan, what's up, Dan? Okay. Sorry, just need to take a break every so often. Let's look at the middle-ish of the field, okay? So we already established, in my opinion, the strongest spot in the field is this number 2 gap. This number 2 on the snake side blind spot is really, really, really strong because you are completely protected from whatever's going on heads up. You have a very, very strong gap to shoot the number 2 as he tries to run and gun. And if you want to ignore that guy, you can break out even faster and shoot for the Dorito runner, depending on where they're going. So to me, this is the absolute BIS all-star S tier, whatever you want to say, S plus spot on the field. There's nothing better, in my opinion, off the break than this spot. There's also a decent amount of versatility because you can shoot this crossfield shot and then immediately dive into this bunker and then play the heads up snake battle. Essentially granting them the snake 1, which is fine as long as they don't get past the snake 1, or better yet, as long as they don't get past this like snake, this snake 2 spot. As long as they don't get past this, you're totally fine to let them get into the snake. So the nice thing again is you can do staggered breakouts. So you can have your number 3 and your number 2 essentially trying to sweet spot the Dorito guy. And then as soon as they either cross the gap or die, then this dude instantly comes here and plays heads up. And then this guy can follow behind him and pick up the Dorito angle. But now he's further up the field. I would suspect that that's a pretty common, I would assume that's going to be a pretty common leapfrog route. And the nice thing again is if you have to double up the home for whatever reason, this guy can shoot the snake gap. Your number 3 can come here. I don't know where that line came from. Your number 3 can come here and do the exact same job that the number 2 was doing. And you can just do whatever you want on the snake side. So you can send your snake guy to the snake 1 off the break and your number 2 behind him, and he just plays heads up. So you can give a lot of room, even though you're kind of jamming up traffic in the middle, you can still give a lot of room for your snake side to just go to town. So that's pretty good. Typing your name as a flex. You just show up to a chat. Eric. All right. If we look on the inside of this, of this wedge here, I mean, you can shoot at that guy if you want. There is a decent gap to be held. So depending on the situation and what's going, I would probably not double up that bunker, but depending on if the whole snake side is completely blown apart. So let's say, for example, I don't even know if I would do this actually, but it's always possible, right? Let's say the entire snake side is double tiger, a tiger 2. There's nobody in front of you on the snake side, and your number 3 decides to fill up here in this spot, but still help the Doritos. He could actually prevent them from flipping the field in this gap alone by just shooting that for days, while your snake side essentially wraps and closes out the point. Even if that's the case, I would still probably just wrap and go this way, to be honest. It's probably just safer, but getting up into the stand-up wedge, again, you have this gap. It exists. It's fine. It's going to be a lot of heads-up battle. I think that gap is more of a indication or reflection of what these people are, what these two are going to do to fight each other. So this, if it were me, I would run as the number 2 on the snake side, or even the number 3. I would run a 1v1 drill where you're essentially fighting this heads-up battle and trying to lose your opponent. Because this is, in my opinion, like when you hold the gap or versus when you shoot paint versus like which direction you take is gonna dictate a lot of how the early game develops into the mid game and where these two end up, right? So if you actually are, if you're really good at like losing your opponent and making sure you shoot the paint you need to stop them from moving, it's probably going to be very common that this dude ends up being here even before this guy moves, and he can hold this gap on him without him seeing, right? Obviously, there's lots of stuff that can happen. I'm not even suggesting that that's what you should do, but if you want to do a lot of like up the middle sort of run through stuff, you have to be able to like manipulate the front guy or the guy in front of you to get him to lose you so that you can just launch. So there's a little bit of that going on here. Again, like this is an okay-ish spot to hold if you wanted to like surprise the snake guy. So let's say, for example, you were here, and for whatever reason, you knew that they got to this snake 3. You're not going to really do anything from this spot to stop him. So now you have to look heads up. And unfortunately, the only person that's going to stop you is realistically the number 3 in the back center if he's still there, or a heads up guy in the number 2 that's already at the tower. It's possible that you guys are mirroring up, but he's not going to, well, I guess he will see this move right here. So this like channel, this little gap, this window rather, is the only thing you really probably have to worry about as soon as they get to that snake 3. Because I just can't imagine that a can guy is going to be looking at you or this tower guy is going to be looking at you. But it's possible. So if he gets to that snake 3, you come here, check off what you need to, and then you get here. You can actually get tall and surprise somebody who might come this direction. Thinking that like, oh, they checked him off, he's not there, boom, now you're here and you surprise him. So I think that's like a decent-ish move to pick off the snake guy. And then let's look at what the Dorito side looks like from here. There's nothing. There's nothing of value, in my opinion. Again, you have a gap that's not great. You'd have to shoot there a lot to actually hit somebody. And then if you came up to this 50 brick... honestly, the angles are not, I don't know if they're better or worse. You do have a better shot onto the snake 3 guy from this spot, at least his pack. I'm not sure how much better you see the snake 2 to the snake 3 move, because if they hug that really tight, they actually you're probably not going to see them. So not a better spot to shoot from, but you can definitely, again, if they get to the 50 snake and you need to kill that guy, well, if you come here and he's not there, you check this middle route off, you come here, now all of a sudden you're within essentially rundown range of that snake 50 guy, depending on where he's looking. So there's that, which means that we need to look for spots to protect that move, right? If we get to the 50 snake quickly, we need to watch for that move to make sure we protect our teammate. Lots of stuff going on in the brick on the snake side towards the Dorito side. These gaps are massive. No free kills, I would say, except for maybe the baby Dorito. Baby Dorito is probably a free kill. I don't think you'll kill the corner here, and you might clip this guy's head, depending on how loose he's playing from his bunker. So that's definitely possible. And then let's go over to, we'll look at that. Well, let's just finish this route, actually. Again, you got to check off where the home's looking. You got to see where if the guy's still in the wedge that's playing heads up to you, then this move is safe-ish. But this looks to be interesting. Okay, so here's what I'll say. And then we'll go to the Dorito side really quick. The center-ish Dorito side, which is really only like these two bunkers. So if you are in this situation and your opponents are mirrored with you, the number 3 is the guy who really is providing protection from those sorts of moves, right? Depending on what's going on, he certainly can't only be doing that, because that's not a really great angle to hold. But I would suspect that a lot of teams will be making moves from here to here in the mid to late game, right? Again, you probably shouldn't be in the back center in the late game. I would say you definitely shouldn't be in the back center in the late game. But like, depending on how snake things are going for you or them, it might be that, like, again, if we get a guy in the snake 50, this dude's going to feel the pressure to start making these types of moves. And the way that we protect against that is our number 3 looks over our number 2. Because if we can hold them, if our number 2's here, our number 1's here, and their number 1 is in this spot, and their number 2 is here, the way that we capitalize on our positioning in this spot is to prevent the number 2 from moving. Because this guy can hold the snake dude for days, but if he has to come off of that job because he's worried about whatever his heads up guy is doing, then all that happens is we equalize our positioning, right? Or worse yet, we look here, we take this bite, and then we die, and this guy gets here and comes and runs down our number 1, and now they're 2v1 on this side of the field, right? Or it's a 2v0 in that case, right? So the way that we avoid that catastrophe is we have our number 3 looking for those moves and watching where his number 2 on the snake side is looking. So if you are stuck in the back center and you have 5 alive and you don't really need to move anywhere, holding this gap and shooting paint right here, in my opinion, does not look to be a bad idea. Because if we go back to the home, what else are you going to do here? So if again, you have good spread, both sides of the field are alive, you can shoot a gap on the baby Dorito, which isn't bad. I'm not suggesting that it's bad. There's some value there for sure. You can shoot that gap. You don't have anything up the middle except for your mirror, and you can't see anything snake side except for what your number 2 is already doing right here. And if that's the case, my opinion is you should shoot this gap. I would just shoot paint here and make sure that the number 2 does not try to go to that standing wedge to kill your snake guy. So something to be aware of. Why not snake side brick early? We'll take a look at that in a second. I don't. So first of all, I don't love brick bunkers. I don't think most people do. The angle, the harsh edge of those bunkers are really bad, and there's so much visibility you lose by being in those bunkers. And if you decide to switch from looking one side to the other, it's very hard to get a point of reference to know where you need to put your gun. So I don't think there's any value. Like, why would I go to the 50 brick? I would go to the 50 brick because I want to surprise somebody in the snake. Well, if it's in the early game, I'm not going to see the snake 1. I'm not going to see the snake 2, and I can't probably see the snake 2 to the snake 3 move. So the only time that this is a valuable move, if I'm going to look snake way, is to kill somebody who gets set up in that snake 3. Now that could be quite a ways away in the point, depending on what goes on. But I essentially have to give up that wedge shot back here. I have to essentially let this go for that guy to feel comfortable to make those moves, right? So why wouldn't I just go to a safer spot and hold this gap and not risk my body in the 50, which I could be run down for doing, and instead of just doing this? Like, why wouldn't I just do that? If I decide to look Dorito way, well, now my back is to some snake guy who I have no idea is there or not. And I rely on my teammates to call out to me to say, he's in the snake 3, he's in the snake 3. You know what I mean? Like, I certainly could then turn and look for this dude. But again, this is the part where I talk about you lose your point of reference, right? If I was looking Dorito way and I suddenly had to look snake, I'm going to have a hard time getting set up in my bunker to know exactly where I need to come out to shoot the snake guy. Like, that's because there's just so much visibility gone, right? All my homies hate straight bunkers and cans. I hate bricks. Yeah, I agree. All right, let's go to the 50. Let's go to this Dorito side tower, and then the 50 brick, and then we'll come up with some breakouts. So I'm just always I'm curious what the cross shots look like on the Dorito side, because the cross shots from the snake to the Dorito are really strong. So there's obviously some pressure you can apply to the home. I'm not sure there's a lot of value there. The trick, excuse me. The value of looking inside in this spot is really only that you're going to pressure the middle guy or the home guy, and you're going to delay whatever sorts of moves he's going to make out of here. But that's kind of it. And it's even a risky, this is a gun battle. This is a risky 50-50. I guess it's not risky if it's 50-50, but you get what I mean. If you pull up short, you can't even actually blind out the home guy. He could probably shoot your loader if you try to do this, but you do have a gap here. You actually have the inside wedge shot that we looked at earlier. So if you find that the teams you're playing really like to make that route where they do that number 2 route here, and they go here, here, and then here, or better yet, they actually just delay from this tower into here, you have a pretty decent gap to hold. So you could actually just stop here and just blast this little zone, because if you can keep them out of that wedge, we've established that your snake guy is free to go. So that's actually, okay, I think we discovered something. So if you find that the number 2 on the snake side is playing this gap a lot and is shooting here and just holding this for 10 seconds or so, then in my opinion, if you can survive this route where you come out here, which again, this guy's shooting at you, so you've got 2 people shooting at you, which is going to be really hard to survive. But if your number 1 comes here and then runs up, I don't know if this is a good play at all, comes here and here, well, now all of a sudden you can just start blasting this gap, and they can't get into this wedge anymore. And if that's the case, now if you survived in the snake, you're into the 50 snake with no problems, right? We've established that if you get here, the only guy stopping you is the wedge. So if you get here, you might even make a call for that. But if that guy's not there, then boom, all of a sudden you're here, You do have a tower guy that could pick that job up. So depending on if he came here and they're hearing, snake, 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 whatever, he might be able to stop him here anyway. I guess it depends on how tall you are. So that may not be as free as I'm thinking, but I'm not saying there's value there. I'm just saying it is a thing you could do. Heads up towards the Dorito side, huge gaps. Dude, the Dorito side is getting boned this event, I feel like. You're not even like getting free kills when you get to the Dorito 3, and yet you have really big gaps from lots of different bunkers that you have to get through just to even get up the field. So that's brutal. Yeah, man, like all of these are so big. So you have this gap, and then if you decided to go up to the 50 brick, which is a huge gap as well, obviously the snake could torch you. You do actually have a pretty good shot onto the snake 3 guy. So you could do some kind of if A then B sort of style where, let's say for example, let's say you did a breakout like this. You were somehow able to get your number 2 here and your number 2 here. And this dude is playing heads up. And let's say that this dude is playing heads up. Because this is, again, the Dorito side's not safe. This snake side tower is really safe. And let's say you heard snake 3. So you heard this guy shout snake 3. Well, this dude can't do much there. He has to come here. But maybe instead, he shoots cross, holding a Dorito gap, picking up the job from this number 2, and now this number 2 comes here and tries to pick him off. Because the difference is this move into here to shoot the snake actually provides kill potential. you could actually kill this dude instead of just pressuring him to not move. Whereas if you just come here to here and try to do that job, all you're doing is pressuring him to not move. Does that make sense? So the issue is this is a huge gap. That is a massive gap. So it's easier said than done. It's just, that is a thing you could do if you wanted. If you don't kill him, you're in bad shape, because it's going to be pretty hard to live behind this brick and have to play behind your gun. But, and that actually makes me think that it's not even worth it to come here to just look the Dorito side. Because if you guys imagine, like, you'd have to be in this bunker to not have your pack shot by the Snake 3. And the guy, you know, if you're trying to, if you're making a game plan that revolves around them not getting into the Snake 3 when we know that this is such an easy move to make if this dude is dead, well, that means as soon as this guy dies, you are dead as well, right? If you're like, hey, let's go to the 50 brick on the Dorito side and look Dorito way because we can surprise somebody, well, that plan is only as good as this number 2 living, and there's not a real easy way to communicate quickly. We lost this dude, which means you need to look Snake way. It's possible. You could absolutely, like, I know who plays the number 2, or I did know who played the number 2 on the team that I played for. So if I was playing that Dorito gap and I was hearing, hey, so-and-so died, I would have to immediately pick up, oh, okay, I have to shoot this way now, otherwise I die. So it's a riskier way of playing. It can sometimes pay off, but really the value in this spot is a trap. It's surprising somebody. So if you concede the entire Dorito side essentially to them, but you got somebody in this 50 Dorito, you could pick up a lot of free kills by just people running through gaps thinking that they're safe. But you also run the risk of just dying. So trying to make this move. All right, let's look at those 1-2, like the 2-for-1s up the middle, and then we'll create breakouts. Sorry, somebody had asked for that, so let me do that really quick. I don't like the Dorito side stuff for any kind of run-throughs. Though I will say, you know, again, imagining that it's going to be really, really hard to survive this gap. If you are able to get through to this gap and in here, and they haven't matched you, or better yet, they have matched you, but they haven't gotten anything wider than the can, then you do have a lot of wrap like pressure potential from this bunker, which as soon as you do that, frees up your number 1 to just swing super wide to get into the Doritos. As far as run through stuff, well, I imagine that if the middle guy dies and we make the assumption that the number 2, the 2-man operations on either side of the field play heads up, you can see how quickly things can fall apart. So if this was the scenario where you had somebody here, we'll say here, and this dude dies and these guys are looking heads up, well now, I mean, look at how much room you have to play where nobody's going to see you. It's this entire gap right here. So that means that the way you protect your teammates, there's lots of ways, but one of them is to have your number 1s check up the middle frequently. Every time you move, you check up the middle, you shoot some paint, and then you play heads up. Because if you don't, and you die as the number 3 back here, wherever he might be, if he just dies, and these two, the number 2s especially, are not doing some sort of cross check off, then that middle run through is really, really strong. So as soon as you punch through here, you can kill this dude, you can kill this guy, and that would be, I mean, there's really just variations of that, right? It could be coming from this direction. It could be coming, I mean, he could even be back here. It doesn't really matter that much. It's just that this middle window, people forget about this a lot. It's really easy to just ignore the middle because it's like, nobody's going to run through that. Those gaps are huge. But if you find that teams are held down, like gridlocked, and they're playing heads up, it's those opportunities that can arise when people just aren't looking in the middle. So again, if you are number 1 and you are stuck where you're at, you want to be productive, stare up the middle for even just like 10 seconds and just shoot paint. And you'll be surprised at the moves that you not only stop, but at the people that you catch trying to get a little sneaky. Those posts snake side are going to get frustrating. Yes, for sure. Yeah, I think the D side is going to be a meat grinder. I totally agree. Another layout where the Dorito side has to stay alive. Then Jet, yes. Yeah, I feel like this is going to be a Tapes win it layout. I agree. Overall, just looking the layout, I'm happy with it. Can't complain. No, I don't think it's a bad layout. I just think that the gaps on the Dorito side are crazy. Yeah, I think the middle's good. It has a lot of potential. And again, you know, if you find that if excuse me, if what is stopping you mostly are cross-field shots, then there's a lot of opportunity to move as a number one, right? Just because somebody is holding a shot on you cross-field for days does not mean that you can't put them in and go or dodge that paint. The distance between somebody shooting at you from, I'm just using this as an example, from like the corner all the way over to some sort of snake side bunker or vice versa from this can over to the Dorito gap or something. Like if somebody, for example, was holding a gap right here, if I was in this spot, or where was it actually? Let's take a look. There's that can that can do it, but what was the big gap? Oh, it was the snake one. Yeah. So this snake gap that this guy can hold, if you're owning what's in front of you, you can see that paint coming, right? And you can see, is it landing here? Is it going high across my vision? Is it coming like right next to me? And depending on what the answer to that question is, there might even be some instances in which you can back up and you can come to the corner and take this route. Or it could be that, okay, the paint is shooting high, I'm going to dive and go underneath it or whatever. I mean, this guy has to be shooting that paint because it is a pretty wide gap, or rather the distance is pretty far that it would be hard for him to react and shoot you. But there are a lot of different ways. Like even if you back out and then come to this spot right here, like where he puts his paint, it's obviously risky, but it's just, you know, do you have to make this move or not? But like there is a difference between paint landing in these different spots, right? So being able to read where that paint is coming from will give you an idea of where you need to run to get through those gaps. But just because there's a number one on the snake side shooting cross all day, probably for a lot of this tournament, does not mean as the number one on the Dorito, you cannot move. It just means that you have to find where that paint is. Okay, let's look at excuse me. Let's look at some breakouts here, and then answer any questions you guys have. So. All right. If you're dying on the Doritos, first of all, I think it's just you got to risk a body, and I do think your Dorito one guy can survive. Oh, we need to actually look at the routes really quick for the Dorito. So you also have this gap. This is actually one that I didn't talk about. You have this gap up here running to this tall wedge that is really strong to hold the Doritos as well, which you then can come here and shoot this snake gap. Kind of. It's not really great, actually. Can't see anything. So you could do this, though. Ooh, that'd be a really good way into the 50 brick, actually. So if the number two decided to play here, really anybody, but if he decided to use this gap to hold, or he could even shoot heads up, doesn't really matter. He could shoot either way. If he decided to shoot heads up, he'd have a better idea of what's going on his side of the field. And then you could break out to this 50 brick and you could come here and hold the Dorito gaps if they've been taking those bites. Or you could come here and hold the snake. Or if you came here and you plucked someone out in this zone, preferably the number two, well, now all of a sudden, boom, you've got shots onto the home. If he doesn't see you, right? You can either kill the home, or you can come here if he's still looking Dorito way, you know, because we established that the Dorito side is bigger for the home guy to be looking. If you come here, well, now all of a sudden, boom, you're in their snake side, or their side of the field really quickly, and you can either kill the snake guy, or you can, if they've pulled up short to the god, you can hold this and just bait. You can then, if the home is still looking Dorito way, you can come here and shoot whoever is made it out on the Dorito side, whether that's somebody in the can, the corner, the Dorito one, and then you can shoot the guy in the god here, or you can follow through by coming here and shooting these two guys. Boom, boom, and then coming here and then shooting this dude. Again, there might be a guy in the can, whatever. But that like up the gut route where you're playing heads up is pretty strong. It's just the fact that you can't really see anybody if they're playing the blind as well. So the advantage, though, is that if this guy excuse me, if this guy comes here and shoots cross and then plays heads up and you come all the way looking heads up, you're going to know where this guy, like which way he's looking and if he's made it to the wedge or not. You could even wait and bait this move out if you played that right. If you just stayed here and waited, you could even bait that move out. And as soon as you kill him in that instance, then is when you take that up the middle route. Like that to me is probably going to be a pretty common move. And that does mean that what we could do is if we wanted to so let's say they're making moves in the Doritos. Let's say they're actually surviving because we just can't kill them for some reason. You have the option of having your number 3 and 2 shooting for those gaps. You could do the same job where your number 2 instead goes up to this standing wedge and does the same thing, but now he's more forward up the field because you want to pressure the snake side or whatever. Or you could actually just have your number 3 do that. Your number 3 is the one who comes, or excuse me, not your number 3. You could have your number 3 doing this because we just want to hold safety. Like, let's say, for example, you have 2 guns, you're shooting Dorito away every point, and nobody's going through those gaps. And you want to now, like, well, we don't want to waste our number 2's gun on the snake side, so let's do something different. Well, if that's the case, you still probably want to hold some kind of safety net, maybe, from the home guy, and now your number 2 can just come up here and do this. Boom. Now he can do that same thing that we just talked about. That's a pretty strong change up that would be difficult to avoid, right? You could also shift things over a little bit so that your number 2 on the Dorito side does that. Your number 1 tries to survive anywhere going to these bunkers. Your number 3 is the one who plays heads up, and your number 2 is your number 2 on the snake side is the one who does this job. And then your number 1 goes to any number of these, like one of these bunkers. It doesn't really matter, right? So that's also an option. And this guy, again, looking to read away. So different variations of kind of the same thing. Again, making the assumption that the Dorito side's going to be hard to make. Who's going to stop the snake runner? That's the question, though. So this gap is here, but I don't think anybody can shoot that snake guy. I mean, that is a tough run. That's a tough run to stop, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, wow. It's like here. So if you come out quickly, you can get your paint here. The problem is if they're shooting at you from the home, that's kind of a checkmate situation for you. Wow, that snake guy is going to be really hard to stop. Because like even this gap, if you tried to blind out anything going on in up the middle, that's your window. Even getting to the can, you can't shoot him. Like you might. I guess it's there. It's just I mean, by the time you run out, get here, and start shooting, I just don't think your paint's gonna get there in time. I think that guy's diving already. So that snake 1 looks to be free. Pretty free. I don't know. You guys who are practicing this layout will have to tell me where the paint's coming from to stop you from getting into the snake. Because so far it looks like the home shooting this gap, which is more targeted towards the number 2. But yeah, can't imagine. I don't know where that shot is. I like fields where nothing is safe. I agree. It doesn't seem to be dominant anywhere. Should force aggression and let midpoint adaptation shine. Game plans are going to need a lot of plan B options as dropping bodies. Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to make a video on that I haven't because it's a hard video to make is an if A then B style paintball where, you make moves based on what is happening as a reaction to your opponents. It's a hard thing to do until you've actually like played the layout. I could have done it with the WCPPL layout, but I just didn't get around to it. So yeah, so obviously like your coaches for the most part are just really dictating what's happening in the first 30 seconds of a point. But a lot of the if A then B stuff is the other aspect that a coach can help you with is they can establish like, okay, if they get to this spot, if you hear this call, who is the person that needs to make a move to stop it? And that's if A then B paintball, as Mike Bianca calls it. So if we through practice can figure out what bunker can stop this particular move or whatever, that's how you start to create really educated mid to late game plans that are really kind of an outside your coaches. He can't tell you everything. He can't be like, well, you're going to go here and then 30 seconds later you're going to go here and a minute later you're going to go here and then you're going to do this and you're going to do that. It's really just like, here's the breakout. this is the objective of the game plan, and you already know what all the if A then B moves are, right? Okay, going back to breakouts then really quick, and then I think we're gonna be done here. I mean, the only way that you can get to the tower safely is if you come out to the can, and there's definitely something there. It's just that, like we talked about, your value is going to be probably looking Dorito way until you hear something going on in the snake. Let's say snake 3, and then you come here and look snake 3. Even then, if I was the snake 3 and I knew that was a move that the Dorito side players were making, I would just come to the snake 3 and instantly start shooting that. If it were me, right? Because now you're going to pick up free kills because you're baiting your opponents to make moves based on what you're doing, right? Which is the big downfall to if A then B paintball. Okay, so we've established that you could double up these 2 spots very easily, have this guy still containing essentially the entire Dorito side at this bunker, and then this guy plays heads up, stopping the snake move. If he dies, this person can take that job over, but now obviously you lose control of you lose that hold that you were establishing. So you just have to be aware of that. As far as where the number 2 and the snake, the number 2 and the number 1 go on the Dorito side, I would probably try to avoid this bunker. Generally speaking, it is a no man's land. There's nowhere for you to go. Like, you just don't have a lot of options to get out of this spot. And as the game goes on and you either are equal in bodies or down bodies, you're going to die in this spot, in my opinion. So that would then tell me that the Dorito 1 guy needs to get out of this bunker as fast as possible by being in one of these 3, which then relieves the pressure to have a guy here. Your number 2 somewhere in this bunker. But I would really, like I said, I would expect the number 2 on the Dorito side to be playing in the home a lot, and then for your number 1 to be risking his body in one of these bunkers. There's not even like good routes into the deep Doritos, right? Like, there's just so many openings that, a lot of times it'll be like, oh, there's actually a really decent, like, blind up the middle into the Dorito 2 or the Dorito 3 or whatever. But there just is not that. You have this route, which exists. You can get up to the 50 brick. It's just that if the number 2 on the snake side was holding that cross gap the entire time, he's going to kill you. So he'll kill you in this spot right here. So, if you figure out like, hey, they're actually just trying to get to this wedge rather than shooting that cross shot, and the home guy is the one who I have to worry about. Well, you still have the same issue, but actually let's look at that route really quick. So if I come here, oh yeah, the home can't see me. So I'm clear. So if we hear that the number 2 is more often than not just going into the wedge right away, this isn't a bad move, because if they, for example, if they stop at these bunkers, let's say the number 1's here and the number 2 goes here for whatever reason, well, now you have a really strong spot to stop them, and anybody behind you can just swing around getting into the Doritos. Okay, last couple moves. Honestly, the Dorito side is a lot of like, you just have to know, like, so what I would do if I was the Dorito, I would get in every bunker and I would know exactly what I could shoot as soon as I got there. That is true with every bunker and every position, but especially with the Doritos, I would just be very aware of like, okay, I come here and I can see my heads up guy versus I come here and I can't see my heads up guy, right? Like if I get to that Dorito 2, call it, and I get low, that guy can't see me and I can't see him. So those are the things that you need to know so that you optimize your life in that bunker. That way you're not trying to waste time finding the shot on the guy heads up if it's not there. But yeah, otherwise it's like, just kind of get out of here. The corner, we didn't really look at the corner and its strength to the Dorito as a support bunker. So, I mean, assuming that they don't get wide with you, if they don't match your positioning and they get stuck somewhere in this Dorito 1, Dorito 2, or can on the Dorito side, you have okay-ish shots over the top to like pressure somebody. You obviously don't have great vision, and you don't have any vision for that matter from the Dorito 1 to the Dorito 2, but that, there's some value here in wrapping. Definitely wouldn't look on the inside here. Getting up to the baby isn't better. Wow. That's interesting. Hold on. So the best support bunker to the number 2 in the early game is this Snakeside Tower. So this Snakeside Tower offers the best early game support to the Dorito 1, which then tells us, well, what should our Dorito 2 guy do? And I just think it's probably going to be crossfield stuff at the beginning. But what? There's nothing. There's no crossfield shots here. This can't even worth it. Do you just come here and then filter up? Is that the move? What do you see? Nothing. Man, the Dorito side is really tough. Like, this is a really, really tough Dorito side. It almost is reminding me of a layout in, like, think 2021, where, like, the middle guy couldn't see anything but blind shots over the tops of bricks. And I think it was the Sunshine State layout, 2021. I can't remember. But it had like this middle alley where the homes could see each other. But then as soon as they passed the towers on either side of the field, they couldn't see anything. And so that's kind of what this looks like, because what I'm seeing right now is that the number 1 needs to survive and establish his body somewhere in these bunkers. And then the number 2 needs to react off of that. And all the while, this guy, we'll call it the number 3. This guy is containing the Dorito side until this guy can break out and start applying heads up pressure, which then relieves this dude to do whatever. But if you have a situation where you've got this dude here, a guy here, and a guy in somewhere in these bunkers, and then who cares where the snake is, and this dude is looking this way, this guy's looking this way, and this guy's looking this way. Well, let's say this dude does break out and get to the Doritos. Well, this guy doesn't really have any options to look snake way. So, this is where you start getting really deep, and I don't think we need to do that here. But, yeah, interesting. I don't know. I'm really curious if you guys will let me know either in the comments or in Discord how this layout's playing. I'm coaching a team. I'm coaching Matt the Gym Rat's team, Carolina Chaos, and so I will try to get some insight as to what's going on, just because I'm super curious. But I would be surprised if the number 2 makes it out here anywhere in this spot. I think even delaying from the home, like if you were to play here and you were to shoot heads up, you could possibly get away with that. It's just that if this number 3 is playing in his bunker and he sees you in the open as you're trying to gunfight your way out of dodge, I just don't see you surviving that. I just think you have to run back behind this bunker, which if that's the case, you should have played here to begin with, or you just have to run out into his gun and die. And it just seems like this gap is just impossible to make. And it means that the only other alternative is to risk both of your bodies on the Dorito side off the break. And that might be what you have to do. There is an interesting dynamic here that we do need to talk about. So, and this will be the last thing. So, if they have someone who goes to the tower looking Dorito way, it stops. Wait, what was the move? Sorry. It's that move. Okay, it's the can. So if their number 2 plays in this tower and looks Dorito way, he stops all Dorito progression. If you halt, or you have to run through his gun, right? And that's always going to be a thing. But that means that if he doesn't do this, then you are free for takeoff. You're clear for takeoff if you survive the home guy's gun off the break, which this is a pretty small gap for the number 1. Okay. So if you survive this move, you can get all the way up into this Dorito 2 because the home guy can't see that. He can only see the gap after it. Okay. Now, if we start doing this a lot, where we're going to the Dorito 2, guess what's going to happen? Their number 2 is going to have to look this way, because the alternative is that this guy either shoots crossfield and then goes in here right away, or just does that off the break and he plays the heads up snake. And if he does that, then like I said, we can start taking this move consistently. When we start doing that, they're going to say, we need a gun to shoot the Dorito runner. Who is that guy? That's going to be this dude. Well, now, if we have the number 2 shooting here and the number 3 was still doing the same thing that he was doing, we now have an open snake opportunity. Where now, if we've been surviving this snake run off the break, which I feel like you would, this isn't that hard. It doesn't look that hard, I should say. If you anticipate that that's what they're going to do that point, you can get to the 50 really quickly because the only guy that was stopping you was the number 2 on the snake side. Now, if we go a step deeper, if you say, okay, I want to protect both the Dorito side and the snake side, well, now what you do is you send your number 3 here. You send your number 3 here. You send your number 2 here, and he's holding the snake way the whole time. The number 3 is holding this cross gap the whole time. But now look what happened. You now have 2 bunkers that are free. Not free, they're safer. You've freed up those 2 bunkers now because certainly you're still going to get heat from this guy coming out, right? But if you have one dude who's shooting at you who has to be on the move to hit you, that's a risk you're going to have to take, right? Sunshine State 2021. Okay, yeah, I was pretty sure it was, yeah, that sounds right. So now, if you again force your opponents to react to you making it to the Dorito 2 off the break, and by doing so, you shift essentially bodies towards the snake way. So we're not even paying attention to what they're doing on the Dorito side yet. But if you do that, well, now you have, a crossfield hold that can be broken relatively easily. And obviously, depending on how you respond to that and how you want to trap them. So what you do here in this situation is you free up they free up their Dorito side as well, I should say. So the alternative, let's say that's what they start doing. Let's say they start shooting here. Where was it? They start shooting here and they start shooting here. What you might be able to do, actually, that would be a bad situation for us. Just kidding. It would be this. If they only have one gun now that's shooting Dorito away, I guess they could still double up they could have their number 2 on the home. But my point is, you actually might be able to still send both bodies off the break to different bunkers with only them running through this one gap together. Because if you guys know, like, my biggest issue with breakouts, or one of my stipulations about making good breakouts, is making sure not to run 2 people through the same gap off the break. That is true in every situation except for something like this, in my opinion, because this gap is small enough that what I've been saying this whole time is, well, the Dorito 1 guy is probably pretty safe because he's running. He is down sprinting immediately. And the reason why it's risky for the number 2 is because oftentimes the number 2 on the Dorito side is running with their gun down. Or running with their gun up off the break to apply pressure. Well, if his only way to get out on the Dorito side is to put his gun down, then so be it. And now the only issue you're going to run into is you are trading heads up gun pressure with paint down range for getting wide and surviving, right? Because now, even if you didn't shoot anybody going into these bunkers, you now are alive on that side of the field, and maybe they pulled up short. Let's say they only went to here and here, trying to funnel the snake side, and you survived and got to here and here. Well, now you are in a really good spot to pressure the Dorito side. Okay. So that's kind of I could see that happening, where we start to see kind of a chain reaction of people responding to what's going on. But if it were me and I was making a game plan, especially to figure out if it worked, I would be sending somebody to this bunker off the break and just seeing where they get shot. That's what I would do. You could even stop short of the Dorito 1 and just see where the paint's coming from. My thought is just that if they didn't kill you in this gap or this gap, there's no gap they're going to kill you in this. Like this gap, there's nobody shooting you here, right? The home can't see you. Let's see really quick. Home can't see that gap. This guy can't see that gap. If they got to this bunker, they could see that gap, but getting to this bunker, as we've established, is going to be very hard. They can't see you in this one. Like, you can't see that gap from here. You can't see that gap from here. So that's the thing. If you survive this gap from the middle and this gap from the cross shot, you are clear for takeoff. Who is going to kill you? The only person who could possibly kill you is if they had a runner, a run and gunner like delayed, and he bumped out and was shooting at you as he was making his move. And man, I'll tell you what, if he hits you when he does that, Shoot, dude, I don't know, man. Just like quit paintball or something. Like that's a tough shot. It is there. It's not to say that it isn't, but like outside of pro, that's a hard shot. So that's also possible for them to look on the inside of the can and do that, but then you open yourself up to whatever is going on the snake side to be shot, right? Which I guess, to be fair, is not really that much. So anyway, whew, okay, we're done. That's it. 2 players plus 1 gap equals chance of free kills for opponents. Yep. Absolutely. What is the best way for the forward Dorito player to look to advance in the mid game? Wrapping outside to put in their number 1 and 2 and putting paint on the cross field in a progression. So maybe, I don't know when you tuned in, Jordan, you might have to back up a little bit there, but I think what we learned is that like a lot of layouts, you actually don't need to worry about your front guy, except for when you're in the Dorito 1. If you're in the Dorito 1, you can see a lot of what's going on ahead of you. But if you get to the Dorito 2, you can get low. If that guy's still in the Dorito 1, of course you have to shoot at him. But if he matches you, you guys can't see each other. If you're in the baby Dorito, you obviously can drop shots at each other and kind of annoy each other, but you can get low and avoid, ignore each other. If you're in the Dorito 3, you can shoot at each other, and it's going to be important for you to hold that pressure. But like, this isn't a situation where you put him in and then go. This is just I'm going to head check you to keep you honest, right? From just running me down. So in most of the bunkers that you find yourself in on the Dorito side, you guys actually can't see each other, which means you really only have the middle guy to worry about. Now, if you find that there are 2 guys that can see you, so for example, if you are in this Dorito 2 and there's a guy in the Dorito 1 right here looking at you, and there's a guy in this bunker and the tower looking at you, all you got to do is just chill. You just have to live because you have more positioning than they do. And as long as something develops around you where your opponent swings wide, he gets behind you, whatever, you can then make something happen after the fact. So for example, if I'm here and I see this dude, I shoot at him, I check him off, and I come here and I shoot at this dude, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's 2 guys that can see me. All I'm going to try to do is own this dude. That's all I'm going to do for a while. I'm just going to try to make sure this guy does not get out of the Dorito 1. Now, when my teammate behind me says, what's stopping you? I'm going to call this bunker. I'm going to say, whatever this is, this guy's stopping me. I got 2 guns on me. This guy's stopping me. Okay, well, depending on where my number 2 is, he might, hopefully he's not here because this is going to be a lot harder if he is. But so I'm here. If my number 2 is in the can or in the home, let's just even say the can for the sake of simplicity. Now it opens up an opportunity for him to come here because the paint's coming low, right? There's so much free space back here now that I'm up the field and I've drawn 2 guns. Now my number 2 can swing out wide, and now he can start taking over the pressure for me on this guy. And now all of a sudden I just have a heads up gun battle on this dude. So now all of a sudden, boom, I'm shooting this guy, get him to flinch, I come here, and now this is when things start to get really bad for them. Right? Because now I'm super wide on the Dorito side compared to them, and my teammate still has established pressure on this Dorito 1. So I would imagine that the bunkers that people are going to try to fight to get to really quickly are these 2, but it has to be that this guy gets here. Well, it doesn't have to be, but like this corner is really good if they are in this bunker. If they're in any of these bunkers, it's less good. It's still, you're applying pressure, but it is less like catastrophic for them. If they're in the tape side of the Doritos. But if they're in that Dorito 1 and you're in the corner and you've got a teammate a heads up alive, even if he's in the Dorito 1, this is a really, really good spot to be in. Because again, you take over that dominance battle that your buddy has to fight. You take this over for him, and now all of a sudden this guy just has to worry about the middle dude. And then as soon as he puts him in, he goes, and he goes, and he goes, and he goes. Hopefully that makes sense. What's up, 68 of you? There's only 30 likes in this video. If you are watching this on your phone, on your PC, maybe a tablet, not on a TV. I know you can't do it on a TV very easily. Please, please, please hit the like button. If there's nothing else you do in this chat, if you don't comment, you don't like, or you don't subscribe, whatever, please hit the like button. It does help out the video a lot because this will go to YouTube right after. Okay, let me answer a few more questions and then we'll be done here. The lead Dorito player's mid game is going to depend on what the snake is doing. Yeah, for sure. But I think, honestly, the biggest issue that the Dorito is going to run into is really that snake 1 guy. If he's in the snake 1, so like early to mid game, I think it's just the snake 1 that's going to cause problems. When you get to the mid to late game and the snake has gone to like the snake 3 and then maybe the viper, like it becomes less of an issue. Mostly because you can live behind your bunker and ignore the snake side, like a lot of Doritos. I really like that D corner spot. Yeah, I do too. There's definitely value there. Is it just me, or is the snake side brick kind of pointless except for digging out the Dorito corner? No, I think the snake side brick has value if you need to kill the 50 snake. Like we said before, if you for some reason like lose this control, if you don't kill the guy making his move from the snake 2 to the snake 3, and you are the guy to stop the snake, you can definitely make this move to then dig him out when he tries to make the next move. Right. So I think there's value there. It's just not one of those bunkers that like just because it's in the 50 means it's good. That's not a lot of layouts that the NXL has been making for the past couple of years are actually really, really smart in that way, that it's because, you know, back in the day, it was like you get to the 50 and you can kill everybody. But it has gotten a lot more sophisticated now that there's a lot of plays. There's a lot of instances in which, heck, you can even get to the 50 brick or the 50 something even for free, but you then are trapped there. You can't really hear very well. Your communication breaks down because of that, and you get dug out through an easy run through. Like that happens a lot. So, just catching up with chat here really quick. Guys, I've had a congestion for like 4 weeks, by the way. Hopefully I'll be, I hope to not have a congestion in Texas. That would really suck. Diamond Hands. This is a fast layout. I see a lot of close battles instead of far kills. I agree, especially in the middle. Do you think you're going to see delay, shoot, then go into the D side, kind of an off-speed breakout? I think so, but I think it'll have to be behind the protection of the home bunker. I don't think people are going to be playing dead zones a lot on the Dorito side just because it's so open. And if your opponents do that, and like if they play the home shooting at you and you don't play the home, and you're just playing in the open, then trying to dodge paint like Neo, you're just going to get chopped up. Now that you mentioned that, Diamond, I get an uneasy feeling that we are going to see more collisions. Possibly. I don't really see a ton of run-throughs like we did in the last layout. Like the last layout was, I mean, I'm glad they put that little cake there because that was definitely a safety hazard. And obviously, I just don't see a lot of run-throughs happening in these bunkers right here, personally. That's just me. But it's possible. Sorry, I hit like late, so I was so interested in you. Thanks, Dan. I don't know if you know, but this is also the MVP S layout. Yes, I did hear that in my Discord server, so this kind of doubles up, which is nice. Maybe not always do the obvious and always force your one to make the moves. Let the number one soak up the attention and then shift other players. Yes, I agree. So one thing that is really like a lot of pro teams do this, but one that I noted really early on that was really, really impressive was Boston Red Legion or whatever, Russian Legion. They have no problems creating game plans where they will completely abandon one side of the field. Like the breakout that I was showing you earlier, they have no problem making a breakout like this. No issues whatsoever. Because as long as you have guns going in the direction that you need to hold safety in certain spots, and you have an idea of why you're even doing this. Like, I'm not just doing this just to keep my Dorito guys alive, even though that would be a good reason to do it. But I'm also doing it because I can then establish a really strong snake side presence. I can either dig out the Dorito side or just hold them while I still move down the snake. And maybe I focus a lot of, like, let's say, for example, both teams decide that they can't really live making it out to the Dorito side, but you decide to not risk the body and your opponents decide to continue to risk that body. Okay. Well, now all you have to do is you just have to have this guy shoot that shot, this guy shoot that shot, this dude hold the snake, this guy shoot heads up. And as soon as one of these two guys right here, either the number one on the Dorito or the number three, as soon as they kill that Dorito guy, he instantly switch looking heads up. This dude breaks out, establishes an island somewhere over here, like literally just anchors the point for the rest of the game in this spot. And then they have a 4-man operation pushing snake away. Alternatively, they could then double filter over to this spot so that this guy comes here, and now they've just completely given up the early game of the Dorito side, but they got that kill they really needed, and then they just filter 2 bodies over that way. So there's no rules against having no one in one side of the field. It's just really hard for lower division teams to create game plans that like actually leverage that that play, right? Like it's really easy to just get stuck here in the back center and not know why you need to get out or so on and so forth, right? But I completely agree with you, Dan. What does it mean when they say kill the cowboy? Well, the cowboy is just a bunker call. So if you are from South Carolina or anywhere on the East Coast, cowboy is like a snakeside middle bunker, from my understanding. Part 2 with Mike Bianca this year. I love his philosophy. Dude, I would love to have Mike Bianca on the line. The issue is going to be that Mike does not want to reveal his secrets, especially with there only being one weekend to practice this layout. Literally everything that man would have to share would be things that he's going to utilize, and it's going to be really hard to get anybody to talk prior to the event. So is there a link to the Discord? It is in every single description in all of my videos, but yes, definitely want to join that. So Snakeside is mainly going to be the one that looks... the one that's looking for kills. Well, I don't think so. I really do think that this layout is one where either side can win. It's just that the Dorito side is going to be way harder to survive off the break. But the snake side is easy to hold. That's the difference. So it's easy to shoot people off the break on the Dorito side. It's hard to shoot people off the break on the snake side. It is easy to make moves up the Dorito because you can't like focus all your attention on those guys. So if you survive in the Doritos, it's easy to move up the field. On the snake side, it's easy to get there, but it's hard to move up unless you dig this guy out. If you kill this dude or this dude, these two guys are what's going to be your biggest issue, getting up the snake. One or the other. Zen is absolutely tight-lipped prior to an event, dude. But I love the man. He's awesome. I hope you are right. Near misses and collisions scare the snot out of me. Yeah, I agree. They are pretty scary. It's in the video description. Oh, I need to actually update the description to include the link to this layout. But who do you consider the alpha of the game during the match? Do you mean like the person who dictates the pace of the game? Is that? I'm not sure what you mean by that. So since there are no gaps in the snake, just shoot landing pads. Like you mean off the break? Yeah, so that's why I think it's going to be easy to survive the snake off the break. Like making it to the snake 1, we'll call it. I think this is a really easy move to make, comparative especially to other layouts. Because again, if we go back to this layout, you have a very difficult shot to hit on the number 1 on the snake side in this gap. That's a really hard shot to hit because he's going fast. You have no other visibility from the home. You have no crossfield shot on the Dorito side. You can't see anybody, anything. If you come out wide, you have this gap right here, right? You can use the wedge to blind heads up and you can shoot here. But now you're exposed to the home guy. The home guy would just blast you if you did this, right? And if you tried to run out to the can, by the time you got here and you were shooting this little blind shot right here, which is the only shot you could shoot, which I actually should say, now that I look at it, this is actually a spot that can hold that snake. I should caveat, this is a really good shot to shoot to stop somebody from getting into that snake 1. This is a totally acceptable shot. It's very strong. But there's no way you're going to get here in time to shoot the snake guy. So your best chance of getting into the snake is off the break. There's no doubt about it. I don't see, I mean, unless there's a shot that I'm just missing, it feels like the easiest way to make it into the snake is off the break. You definitely still have shots, to be fair. Like you do have shots here that will kill people, but it's a hard shot to make on the move. So, and again, if this is the dude, if the number 2 on the snake side is the one that's killing your snake runner by using this wedge as the gap, then your home guy needs to shift his gun to shoot this guy. And then as soon as that happens, boom, now you can't make it. So, but I need to take back my original statement. That can guy can absolutely stop you from getting into the snake. He can't, however, stop you from making moves up the snake, it looks like, because, yeah, you're blinded instantly. So maybe what you do is the number 2 is you come here as a safe option to keep them out of the snake forever, and you still have a lot of... That way, if you do lose your snake guy, you have the ability to swing out, because the problem with this setup is that if this guy dies, you are screwed on the snake side unless your dude filters behind you. Whereas if you do this breakout where you push the snake out wide, now if you lose this guy can easily filter behind him, and as long as they're not in the snake, you're golden. However, if they do get in the snake, you have to go this direction, or your number 3 has to go there, which is also fine. Your number 3 could punch here, or you could go here. Either one works. But if they're in the snake, you have to get out of the can if you want to be the one to stop them, or your number 3 has to move. There will be, let's see, there will be a way to shoot it. I'll find it, but yes, it appears easy to get to the snake, so you should probably simply accept it and match them. Yeah, definitely let me know what that shot is, Dan, because I'm super curious. What do you think of Matt the Gym Rat? Dude, Matt the Gym Rat is awesome. I love that guy. I've told this story before, but a lot of you guys are new here. Please hit the like button if you're watching the stream live. It helps me out a lot. Matt was Matt was the very first person to ever walk up to me and say, hey, I've seen your videos. I really like them. That was in 2020, Florida. No, when did I start my channel? Somebody could tell me. I'm pretty sure it was 2020. March of 2020. And I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was the first event I went to. It was in Florida. It was the first event I went to. I had I want to say maybe it was between 400 and 600 subscribers. And he was the first person that came up and said something to me. And he had at the time about the same. And what was funny is we were trailing each other for a long time, and then he got into TikTok and it just blew up his channel. Obviously his content's gotten better too, but the guy is insane. So I love Matt. It's the reason why I'm coaching his team. I used to watch Stu Ridgel field walk videos. No more. Yeah, dude, for real. How's the shots into the D side? Tyler, you're going to have to back up this video. I'm almost done live streaming here because I got to go back to work, but as soon as I'm done, you'll be able to go back into the video and see what those shots look like. That makes me want to try a shoot the shooters breakout for a couple of points if my lead attackers keep getting chewed up. Yeah, for sure. A lot of the relief you apply to your for your front guys is to shoot the guys that are shooting them. Are you allowed to jump over the snake and shoot? Yes. Yeah, obviously if you're not being reckless. But yeah, there's no penalty against it. Way too many people think they're going to help their ones get to spots as they shoot back at the shooters. The logic is flawed. The shooters' paintballs have already left their guns. No, you're right about that, Dan. That's actually something that I don't ever consider when I talk about that. The difference is if they're going to do some kind of leapfrog in. So for example, if they're risking their body already, you're not going to do anything to help them. I completely agree. But if you make a game plan of we're going to get into the snake before them, but you're going to pull up short to do that, then obviously depending on what shot exists or where you are in relation to those guys shooting at them, if you pluck out the number 2s off the break by targeting them, just look at you guys was it you guys? Whoever Dynasty just played in the finals and the previous event, the number 2s were dying a lot and they couldn't survive, which would then immediately launch their ones up the snake or up the Doritos, right? So certainly if they're just taking the risk off the break, totally agree. Their paint's already there. There's nothing you can do to save them. But if you pull up short with the game plan of getting into the snake or getting into the Doritos by plucking out their number 2s and making it safe for them, that's my mind, or that's my logic. Before I started watching your live, I was watching Matt play his championship games. He's an amazing guy. Yeah, dude, Matt's an awesome dude, a real one for sure. Okay, guys, that's it. How long have we been streaming for? This was quite a doozy. My camera died. How long has my camera been dead, guys? My camera been dead the whole time? Jeez, nobody telling me anything, or maybe I just didn't read it. Anyway, that's it. Thanks, guys, so much for watching. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. If you have anything to say or any other sorts of comments or questions, concerns, whatever, leave them in the comments section down below. Join the Discord server. I've had so many people tell me and meeting me in person, oh yeah, I haven't joined the Discord server because I don't do Discord. I don't care. It's not about that. There are so many resources and things that I share with people on a regular basis. That is the fastest way to get access to anything, whether that's answer to a question, updates to breakouts, anything like that. Join the Discord server. I promise you it's worth it. Anyway, I'll see you guys soon, hopefully in the Discord server. Peace.